Hello, friends and fellow bibliophiles. Welcome back to Cats and Novel Adventures. The Nevermore Readathon is just around the corner. So in today's video, I want to share what I am reading and watching during my week with Edgar Allan Poe. For those of you that are new to my channel or may have missed the announcement video, I am hosting the Nevermore Readathon, a week with Edgar Allan Poe. This is in celebration of his birthday, which is January the 19th. So the week-long event will run from Friday, January the 19th until Thursday, January the 25th. Since it is the beginning of the year, I wanted this event to be flexible, so I only have one prompt, and that prompt is to read something written by Edgar Allan Poe, or you could read or watch something based on Poe's life, on his work, or you could even read a retelling of Poe's work. My reading plans include short stories, a couple of poems, as well as a book that is inspired by Edgar Allan Poe or is related somehow to Edgar Allan Poe. And we do have a group read, and two of my short stories that I'm reading will be the group read, and that is The Telltale Heart as well as The Black Cat. My friend Jennifer and I will be discussing both stories during a live chat on the last day of the readathon, which is January the 25th. It'll be in the evening sometime. And I'm also rereading The Masque of the Red Death. I'm actually reading this for the Mardi Gras Readathon as well. They are rereads, but they are fantastic stories, and I can't wait to revisit them. In addition to those three stories, I am reading a reimagining of two of them, and I am going to read from this book called His Hideous Heart. This is edited by Dahlia Adler, and the story that goes with The Telltale Heart is called Happy Days, Sweetheart by Stephanie Kewen, and the one that goes with The Masque of the Red Death is called Red by Hilary Monahan. But this book includes the original stories as well as the reimagining, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with both of those stories. Out of my complete stories and poems of Edgar Allan Poe, I am planning to read a story I have never read before called The Literary Life of Thingumbob Esquire. It is in the humor and satire section of the book. I am also planning to read two poems. I'm not a big poetry reader, but I decided instead of revisiting The Raven and Annabel Lee, which I believe are the only two poems I've ever read by Edgar Allan Poe, I am going to try The Bells as well as Sonnet Silence. So very excited to dip my toe in something new that I haven't tried yet. And finally, the book that I'm reading throughout the week that is Poe-inspired is a terrifying tale of mystery, murder, and spine-chilling suspense. It's called The Man Who Was Poe by Avi. So happy to have received this from my good friend Kelsi at Slime and Slashers. I have seen this book around but have never had the opportunity to read it, so I am thrilled that I'm finally have one in my possession and that I am going to be able to read it for the week of Poe. But this is about the old city lay dark and cold. It is night, and Edmund is alone. His mother is gone. His aunt, who went in search of her, is dead. His sister has disappeared. Edmund has no one, except for a stranger of the night. A dark, mysterious stranger who flees from demons of his own, who follows Edmund with grim determination through the cold and shadowy city, promising to help but often hindering. A stranger who needs Edmund for purposes of his own. So I think this is going to be a good time, and I'm planning on reading it throughout the week along with all of my short stories and poems. Now, what do I plan on watching for my week of Poe? I have been pretty intrigued with that new Netflix series called The Fall of the House of Usher. It is a mini-series that was created by Mike Flanagan. And I know that they have 8 episodes and there's only 1 season, but I've decided that I am going to just plan to watch the first 2 episodes. If I have the time and I can get through the entire first season, well, I'm going to go for it. But the first episode is called A Midnight Dreary, and the second one is called The Mask of the Red Death. And I really want to see that one since I am reading the short story as well as the reimagining. Now, if you are not familiar with Edgar Allan Poe's work or you haven't read it in a while, I want to make a couple of suggestions of where you can get started or where you can revisit. Now, this list of short stories are just some of my favorites and more of your well-known stories by Poe. So I'm just going to go through them and maybe pick, 1 or 2. Now, of course, 2 of the stories are our group read. So even if you just wanted to do the group read, you participated in this readathon. So here we go. We have The Telltale Heart, which is about a caregiver who gets a little triggered by an old man's eye. You have The Mask of the Red Death, which is an elegant ball that gets kind of bloody and is dangerous. And then you have The Cask of Amontillado, which, make sure you know who your friends and your enemies are. The Fall of the House of Usher, a very strange family with a secret. And then The Pit and the Pendulum, a torture device story of sorts. William Wilson, where we have some doppelganger action going. The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar. I would say this is a zombie story of sorts. We have Hop Frog, which is a story of revenge. The Murders in the Rue Morgue, which is our introduction to the detective, C. Auguste Dupin. And then The Black Cat, which is about a feline who has a bone to pick with its master. So those are the short stories I would recommend starting off with. I think they're a lot of fun. Now, as far as poems, like I mentioned before, I have not read but 2 poems by Edgar Allan Poe because I don't read much poetry. And I would recommend reading The Raven as well as Annabel Lee. Annabel Lee is one of my favorites, and that's how I started my journey with Edgar Allan Poe. And then Edgar Allan Poe only wrote 1 novel. Can you believe that? Only 1 novel, and it's not a very long novel to begin with, and it's called The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. And it is Pym's Adventures on the High Sea. I have read it. I don't know if I would necessarily start with it, but if you want to read a full-length novel by Poe, that's the only one you have to choose from. I do have 2 retellings or inspired works about Poe that I want to share with you that I have read and I think that you would enjoy. And the first one is called The Poe Shadow by Matthew Pearl. I really enjoy Matthew Pearl's work. The Poe Shadow is a little bit about finding, not a little bit, it's basically about trying to find out how Poe died. But it's historical fiction, and it says, Baltimore, 1849. The body of Edgar Allan Poe has been buried in an unmarked grave. The public, the press, and even Poe's family and friends accept the conclusion that Poe was a second-rate writer who met a disgraceful end as a drunkard. Everyone, in fact, seems to believe this, except a young Baltimore lawyer named Quentin Clark, an ardent admirer who puts his own career and reputation at risk in a crusade to salvage Poe's. As Quentin explores the puzzling circumstances of Poe's demise, he discovers that the writer's last days are riddled with unanswered questions the police are ignoring. Just when Poe's death seems destined to remain a mystery, inspiration strikes Quentin in the form of Poe's own stories. The young attorney realizes that he must find the one person who can solve the strange case of Poe's death, the real-life model for Poe's brilliant fictional detective character, C. Auguste Dupin, the hero of ingenious tales of crime and detection. Quentin soon finds himself enmeshed in sinister machinations involving international political agents, a female assassin, the corrupt Baltimore slave trade, and the lost secrets of Poe's final hours. In order to unchain his imperiled fate from Poe's, Quentin must himself turn master investigator. So this is one that you might want to check out if you want something that is inspired by Edgar Allan Poe instead of reading Edgar Allan Poe's work. And then I have to say this was a book club pick for my Chills, Thrills, and Kills book club a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It was the first book I had ever read by T. Kingfisher, and it's called What Moves the Dead. Now, this is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher. And it says, when Alex Easton, a retired soldier, receives word that their childhood friend Madeline Usher is dying, they race to the ancestral home of the Ushers in the remote countryside of Ruritania. What they find there is a nightmare of fungal growths and possessed wildlife surrounding a dark, pulsing lake. Madeline sleepwalks and speaks in strange voices at night, and her brother, Roderick, is consumed by a mysterious malady of the nerves. Aided by a redoubtable British mycologist and a baffled American doctor, Alex must unravel the secret of the House of Usher before it consumes them all. So another great retelling. Now, I will say, if you have not read The Fall of the House of Usher, or you haven't read it in a while, I would recommend rereading the short story, then diving into What Moves the Dead. I have some additional information I want to share with you where you can learn more about Edgar Allan Poe's life, as well as get some access to his complete short stories, poems, and that one novel that he wrote. And these are all websites that are free. And the first one is called the Edgar Allan Poe Society of Baltimore at eapoe.org, the Poetry Foundation at poetryfoundation.org, and the Poe Museum at poemuseum.org. In addition, I suggest checking out Lauren at Happy Haunts Library. She has a wonderful vlog of a reading project that she did last January all about Edgar Allan Poe. I really enjoyed watching it, and I think you would enjoy it too if you are a fan of Edgar Allan Poe. And also, I created an original Edgar Allan Poe tag last January. So if you would like to complete that tag, please check it out as well. And I want to remind everybody that there is a Discord for the Edgar Allan Poe Readathon. It's actually on my channel, Cat's Novel Adventures, and there is a category just for the Nevermore Readathon if you want to check out what's going on there as well. All of the links for the websites, to Lauren's video, my Edgar Allan Poe tag, as well as the Discord are all linked in the description box below. So feel free to check all of that out. Well, there you have it. That's everything that I am planning on reading and watching for the Nevermore Readathon. What about you? What are your plans for the week with Edgar Allan Poe? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget that I will be hosting sprints on Friday, January the 19th in celebration of Edgar Allan Poe's birthday and to kick off the Nevermore Readathon. Until our paths cross again, stay amazing and be adventurous.